A survey released late last week revealed that 52% of couples said they don't have a set up estate plan yet. More than 1,500 American couples with $100,000 or more in investable assets. And it was primarily focused on those between the ages of 45 and 70. A quarter of those respondents said they have not reached an agreement about how much money they need to save and how much they could spend on children and grandchildren, both today and as part of their estates as well. Shanna, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because estate planning is something that is really in your wheelhouse, and it's also really important. Why is this important, and what questions should we be asking regarding estate planning?
I would say that my experience, at least at a minimum, confirms that study, that 52% of couples say they haven't set up an estate plan, because part of my process every year with my clients is that we talk about our financial plan that we established in the beginning. We talk about, taxes and what we're doing to try to minimize that. And then we always end with the estate plan. And so what I ask my clients to do is to, in your own words, tell me, what do you want to happen with the stuff that you have now when you go home to be with the Lord? And most of the time, it's kind of a blank stare or, just silence, or they kind of look at each other like, I don't know if what I think is the same thing as what you think. And it's even, a lot of times, there's some really simple situations where you just have a husband and a wife and they have no children. So for them, a lot of times they really haven't thought about it because they just really don't care a lot. But I think that we should, because the things that we have are not really our own anyway. Remember, they all belong to the Lord. So not only does our stewardship apply and is an important concept in this life, it's a very important concept for the end of our lives. And, it's very common for young people to think, hey, I've got 40, 50 years before I even have to think about this. But that may or may not be true. We don't know. Yeah. Only the Lord knows how many days He has planned for us. And I think it's equally important, if not more important, for young people, especially young people with children, to decide. Because, maybe young people don't have a lot of financial assets, but if they've got children, they've got assets that are far more important than any financial assets. So you want to have some say in who's going to influence your kid's life, who's going to take care of them, who's going to raise them if you're not there to do that job. So it's very important to have an estate plan for that, not only for your financial assets, but for your people assets, the more important assets than your financial assets. So I have them tell me, in your own words, what do you want to see happen? And, a lot of times it's like, well, I want my surviving spouse to have access to everything that I own. And then beyond that, now here's our wishes going forward. And first time around, it's very rare that I hear anybody say that they have kingdom beneficiaries. It's mostly people, because I think that's just the way that we've been, that's the way of the world. That's the way that we've been trained. And even in the scripture, it does say that it's good to leave an inheritance to children or to children's children. So that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that at all. But at the end of the day, I believe that we should ask the owner of the assets what he wants done with the things that we have when we don't need them anymore. Because we're not going to need those things in eternity. That's my belief. And so, to commit to praying with your spouse about it and determining, do I have some kingdom beneficiaries? Do I want to leave some money into the kingdom as well as to some of my people? And, you also want to consider questions like, if I leave money to my people, are they responsible enough to handle that? Or could the money that I leave them become a stumbling block to them? Would they maybe rely on that instead of having a reason to seek out the Lord? So lots of things that you want to consider in doing that. And then, you'll want to make sure that you have some kind of professional that you run that plan by. If it's for legal purposes, you want to make sure it's an attorney. So you want to, when you go to get a will or a trust or whatever it might be, a lot of people just think, well, if I get in the door, I've done well. And then they leave feeling a little bit disappointed because, the attorney's asking them, well, what do you want your documents to say? Where do you want the money to go? So you really need to go into, a legal professional's office with your blueprint ready. Hey, and you want to know, you want to count the cost, you want to know what you're going to leave behind. And since we don't know when we're going to leave, the best thing to do is just add up what we have now, and then to think about that in terms of a percentage. So compare that to your current giving. If you give 10% now, well, maybe you want to do a final tithe of 10%. You want to earmark 10% of your assets to go to Kingdom and then divide the rest up by your people. So I would encourage you to pray about that, have a good blueprint, and take action to get those documents done so that what you want to happen will happen instead of delegating that authority to someone else.
Jenna, that's really well said. Just a follow-up question. You had mentioned several professional people to kind of get involved in there. Someone who is young, who's not done anything yet, they don't have a will set up, trust, any of that stuff. Where would the first place that they go be? Would it be a financial advisor? Would it be a licensed attorney? Who would they go to first?
Well, I would say, the first place that you go to is to your spouse and go to God and get your blueprint. Once you have your blueprint, then you're probably going to need some legal documents. So you're going to need a lawyer for that. You're going to need them to set up a will for you. You're going to need to set up documents about who becomes custodian of your children. You also want to make sure that you have some assets earmarked, some type of life insurance, or if you don't already have enough savings set up to be able to support your children if you're not there to raise them. And, then I would say talk to your financial advisor about some of the types of accounts that you have, because things like your 401k, your IRA, whether it's a traditional or Roth, if you own any type of life insurance or annuities, even some types of investment accounts that are set up with a TOD designation, all of those things that I just mentioned are sort of, as long as you have beneficiaries listed, non-probate assets, which means that it doesn't matter what your will says, the money is going to pass to whoever you have listed as beneficiaries. Now, if you fail to list beneficiaries, then they're going to look to your will. If you don't have a will, then they're going to look to the laws of your state. And the laws of your state may not accurately represent what you want to happen. I know some states say that, if you die, then your spouse gets half of your estate and your children get the other half. And, that's typically contrary to what most people want to happen. They want, especially if they have young children, they don't want, their young children inheriting, or even grown children, especially if the family dynamics are challenging. You don't want your adult children and your spouse to be owning the house that your spouse lives in jointly. So it's a good thing to do proper planning.